Okay, this is the ArchViz weather system for ArchViz. I do have to apologise first off. I have to have it on unlit because if I do have it on lit, it just cries out in pain. So I have to work with unlit to get to all these blueprints which are open. So the demo reel, which I'll show later, basically is this weather system is supposed to be. You'll be able to drag this file in to any project you're working on, and you'll be able to just have that weather system automatically there with all the sounds, the functionality, and just everything you need so to make it work. So I have these disabled for now, but there's different weather systems here. So you have the clear weather, which has like these leaves effects. Obviously with the unlit it doesn't really do it justice. I can try and show you. It's just going to be a bit laggy, that's about it. So you've got the leaves which basically do it. You've got the fog here, which I use the legacy particle system. So you can place more of these down, you can control the variables and how that works and stuff. The heavy rain, which is just heavy rain. The BP rain, which is just light rain. And you also have snow as well. All of these have kill collisions, so as soon as it hits something it will automatically just die. So it's all optimized, and it's the emitters or the spawn rate is quite low. If I can try and get out without dying. It's only a very small level, as you can see. You can increase the size on this on the Niagara system. You can increase the size. You can basically change everything because Unreal is very, just change a lot on it. So with all the blueprints I've got, if I just turn these off, there we go. The rain manager, which for some reason isn't here, is here. There we go. So these are all in like blueprints. Every single one of these. The BP rain manager, which just controls the rain. Clear weather, which has a deactivate function on it, which I'll get to in the UI section. The BP fog, I haven't done this. It's just gets controlled by an off and on value. Just because for some reason I couldn't seem to find out how I could link a legacy system up to a blueprint. It was very confusing. I had a couple of people help me on it. They weren't really sure either. So unfortunately, it's just literally just an off and on function. Heavy rain, again with another deactivate function, so it goes back to the UI. Same with the light rain and the snow. So here's the UI. There was plans to have this sharpness and bias for the snow controller. I was going to get all the master materials which control the value of like the trees, the ground, all of that, and have them plugged into a slider, which I accidentally just destroyed. There we go. So the slider here, which can control how sharp you want it, and the bias of how much you want to like ingrain it. So it can control how it looks. So if you have it on a brick wall, instead of it just being completely snow material, you can have that actually imprinted in the wall. It looks a lot more realistic. And the fog density, which was supposed to be the density of the fog, which increases the initial spawn rate. But I couldn't get any of these to work, unfortunately. After a lot of trial and error, a few nights trying to figure out how I could do it, videos, I just could not get it done, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame because I really wanted to try it out. Here's the blueprints, so we'll go step by step. So these are the buttons to oh my god, yeah, okay, I thought I missed, there was supposed to be something here but it's not rendered in. These are just play animations for the I go back here for these. So these are, it controls all that. If we come down here, we have the weather system. I collapsed the graph just to make this a little bit more bearable. If we were to go in here, this basically controls all the input values for the BPs. Basically, in a nutshell, it just turns it off and on, changing the Niagara systems in between. So if you click the clear weather, you'll have the clear weather on. If you click the rain, the clear weather will turn off and the rain will turn on. Again, this is what I had to do with the fog here. It was a little bit of a trial and error, so put the fog in a BP, active class, and then have that referenced here, which would deactivate on an output. So That's where that flies off to. And just to, instead of it being like a long string of code, like it went off to about here, I collapsed the graph just to make it a little bit more manageable. So, obviously the button inputs. So you've got the heavy rain button, snow button, clear weather button, fog button, which then gets controlled here. So act component activates, and then removes for each loop, and then turns off on the last bit of it here. That's for the fog, so that's what it does. It just turns it off. And then this just goes back here to clear weather, so it deactivates the clear weather, deactivates the snow, etc, etc. That's what these are. I could, if I wanted to, collapse these graphs here, but instead of just like flicking through this, like going back and forth, it's just easier if I just have it like this. I did have a camera system set up for this, but it was broken the last time I tried to fix it, and I didn't really know how to fix it. I did try a little bit of time, like going on the Unreal forums, having a look, see how I could try and figure out UI, but it was a bit of a miss and match. The next part is the custom sky. So I did follow a few YouTube tutorials when making this ArchViz system, just because like I'm not very well acquainted with engines. So having to learn all this again, we done it for the first year of the functionality of the car and the ArchViz level. But having to make my own project based on something I want to do was a little bit confusing. So, following a YouTube tutorial, basically, the sun and moon on different sides has a sky atmosphere with stars. So when the sun goes around, you won't see the stars because of the intensity. But when the moon comes around, you'll be able to start seeing the stars slowly appear, and the stars have a emissive, so you can see that nice and bright. You can control the way it goes around. So this was a custom sky is already a default blueprint in Unreal 5, which is why these are all here. But you have to change the what's it called? You have to add another directional light, change it, add different colors, intensities, add the star mesh to make that work properly. So that's what the video is basically trying to explain. If I go here into this Unreal editor, you can actually see the because it's obviously unlit. You can see the stars in the sky. If I could actually, we'll see if it works. If it doesn't want to die on me, as you can see, my computer is not that amazing at doing all this. Currently trying to rotate it, but it's really deciding it doesn't want to. Alright, it really doesn't want to do it for me. There we go. Right, we'll see if this works. If it crashes, it crashes. I couldn't obviously do this in the what's it called? In the Epix Labs or anywhere else, mostly because it's currently packed with students. It looks so much better when you run this on a computer, which actually can be able to run it. But you can see this comes around, the moon comes around briefly here, brings a nice moonlight through the clouds and such, and then the sky comes back around. So on. I'm not going to do that again, just because I don't want my computer to blow up, so we're going to just leave that like that. And leave it like that. I did have extra cameras set up, so you would be able to flick between the cameras, like I said earlier, the buttons, but I was trying to figure out how that would work. So you could go in between different sections and stuff and see the actual surroundings. But it was a lot of playing around and I just couldn't get it to work, unfortunately, which really did quite suck. With the Megascans, the trees were a free asset pack which I could use. I did check the description to make sure I could use them, so it was all good. I'm pretty sure I did reference it in my forums. If not, I'll definitely have to go back and do that. But these trees are amazing, so they are good. All the Megascan assets which are currently inside the level are all on a low to medium graphics, so it's super easy, super optimized. They're not heavy at all. It's quite nice. But then we've got to go to something else called the Sound Manager. So this is where I actually quite enjoyed messing around with this, finding sounds, putting them in a level, and just making sure that they work properly. I did have one of my friends run me through how this works, but my memory is a bit loose on this. So I know on event begin play, the mixed birds in forest, which would be the clear weather, would be unpaused, but everything else would be paused, so that this will be the first default starting noise. As you can see, clear weather will be on unticked when everything else is on paused, and the event light rain, everything will be ticked, which isn't it. So all here. So basically, when you click the button, it will switch between the sounds. Then obviously I had to go into the, if I can get to it. Gotta remember where I put it. I can't seem to find it. That's okay. It's not that important. With the inside the actual sound cues, you'd have to click a box to make sure it loops. Otherwise, you'd have my painful interaction of trying to figure out why it wasn't looping after about 30 seconds. So yeah, I had to make sure that was ticked. But yeah, I did have some other things planned for this this level. I did actually have. I was trying to figure out how to make a height map for the ground, so that these rocks here would be it would look just visually better on the eye. So these would be popping out of the terrain landscapes, and I did try and figure it out. It took a lot of like messing around. Here it is, the RVT height material and virtual height field mesh. So I was messing around with the height field meshes. There was a few problems with it where it was only getting, this is a 1x2 terrain, it was only getting a 1x1 section of it. So it took a lot of like, trying to figure out how to get that to work as well. But eventually it did end up working in a way. It did do its job, but just not very well. So you can't really see the ground all too well. It's just not that. It's just very flat, which was not what I was trying to go for. Some of the plans which I was going to do, was I was going to make volumetric mud, where if you could drag a physical object through it, it would leave a trace. But unfortunately, that would have to take up a lot of my time. Same with the snow. I wanted snow to basically lay or like accumulate on the ground. I don't actually think that's possible just yet. So a little bit over ambitious, but all the target goals which I wanted to do was eventually completed. This whole project was what I want this to be. So I eventually got what I wanted done, and then had ideas for future things, which eventually I didn't have. I had a lot of time with this project, but it was a lot of like fixing blueprints, YouTube videos, tutorials, Unreal Forum threads, and just making sure it actually works before I move on to something else. But yeah, that is my project in a nutshell. I really like the way this came out. I did have a couple problems with it where unfortunately, yeah, I still use OneDrive, but I had zipped it and uploaded it onto OneDrive. Went back the next day, half my assets were completely destroyed. They weren't there, missing textures, that kind of stuff. And then that happened a second time, and I eventually just gave up and just completely remodeled the level to be something completely different. So I did have a city level, which it was fairly optimized. It was very I would actually argue that the city level could run better on my computer than it would on this. But this works completely fine. I love the way it looks, love the way it is. It showcases the sounds and the wind, and all that kind of stuff. It just showcases it a lot better. But yeah, so if someone was to drag the content file of the weather package onto another project, you'd eventually get all the sounds, textures, materials, everything else. There was a function with the nighttime where I was going to have a campfire around about here, which would basically toggle on and off based on what time it is or what time of day. But unfortunately, I couldn't get that to work. So, but yeah, that's my project. And yeah, thanks again.